The internet, tablets, smartphones, TVs, movies. We live in a digital world right now. We're always almost in contact with some sort of media. So how do we know what we're seeing or reading through the media is true and unbiased? In this section, we're going to learn about some tools to help us navigate our world intelligently and lay the framework for being critical thinkers. As always, let's start out with some definitions. Logical arguments. A logical argument is a claim that a set of one or more premises support a conclusion. A premise, and we've talked about this in a previous section, is a special name that's given to a proposition that's used in an argument. An inductive argument uses a collection of specific examples as its premises, and then uses them to propose a general conclusion. So it goes from specifics to general. And then a deductive argument uses a collection of general examples and uses that to make a specific conclusion. So what we're really going to talk about today, because we have already been introduced an argument and a premise, is this difference between an inductive and a deductive argument. So the biggest thing to see is that for inductive, it goes from specific examples and then it's able to create a conclusion based off of that. That's a general conclusion. So for example, the mailman comes by my house every day at noon for the last 300 days. So I could use those specific examples of every day he's come by at noon to make a general conclusion of he will always come at noon. A deductive argument uses a collection of general examples as its premises and then uses those to propose a specific conclusion. So for example, if I said something like, all doctors know CPR. So since Maddie is a doctor, she must know CPR. So I went from a general example, which is all doctors know CPR, to have a specific conclusion. So Maddie specifically, since she's a doctor, must know CPR. So let's go through and do some more examples with these. So when we see arguments in the real world, it's really helpful that before we analyze it, we precisely state its premises and its conclusions. Most arguments that you encounter in the real world won't be stated in this premise, conclusion form. So sometimes the conclusion will be stated before the premises, or the premises will be hidden within a bunch of rhetoric. You're going to see that happen a lot. So to begin our analysis of this first argument, let's rewrite it in a more precise premise, conclusion form. So let's read the argument first. When I went to the store last week, I forgot my wallet. And I forgot it again when I went back today. I always forget my wallet when I go to the store. So let's think about what are the premises here. It looks like our first premise is going to be, I forgot my wallet when I went to the store last week. That's a specific premise. The other premise is, I forgot my wallet when I went back today. Again, another specific. And the conclusion is, I always forget my wallet when I go to the store. So that is a general statement. I always forget my wallet when I go to the store. So we'd be able to say that because this goes from specific examples, so specific premises, or examples, I should say, instead of premises. So specific examples, and we use those to create a general conclusion. This would be considered an inductive argument. Let's continue this on. Write the following argument in premise, conclusion form and determine if the arguments are deductive or inductive. It is dangerous to drive on icy streets. The streets are icy, so it's dangerous to drive right now. First premise, when I read this, and sometimes it takes reading it a few times, that I see is, it's dangerous to drive on icy streets. The next one is, the streets are icy. And the conclusion is, it's dangerous to drive right now. So when I see these, I see general examples. It is dangerous to drive on icy streets. That's a general example. The streets are icy. And then this is a specific conclusion. It's dangerously to drive right now. So again, in general, it would just be it's dangerous to drive on icy streets. That would be a general conclusion. But in this case, that's one of our examples. So those are general, and this is specific. This conclusion is specific because it is talking about right now. So because this goes from general examples to a specific conclusion, we would say this is a deductive argument. This next example is very similar to the mailman example I gave earlier. Every day for the last year, a plane flew over my house at 2 p.m. Therefore, a plane will always fly over my house at 2 p.m. So we can see that conclusion is a plane will always fly over my house at 2 p.m. Let's go through and break this down into what the premise is. So the premise is that every day last year, a plane flew over my house at 2 p.m. The conclusion is a plane will always fly over my house at 2 p.m. So this goes from for specific examples, we're talking about specific days, and making a general conclusion, it will always fly by my house at 2 p.m. So because it goes from specific to general, this is an inductive argument. Let's look at another argument. Henry must know CPR because he is a nurse, and all nurses know CPR. So in this situation, we have it written in a different way. In this case, the conclusion is written first. They're concluding that Henry must know CPR, and their reasoning for it, so the premises for it, and this word because usually helps you figure out where these premises are for the argument. He is a nurse, and all nurses know CPR. So the first premise is all nurses, or you can write he is a nurse, or all nurses know CPR. Henry is a nurse. So these are two premises, and again, you can write them in the different order. But those are the reasoning that they use to come up with this conclusion that Henry must know CPR. So in this situation, even though it seems pretty specific that Henry is a nurse, these are actually more general than the conclusion. So this obviously is a general statement, all nurses know CPR. We're going to consider this a general statement because it's more general than the last piece, which says Henry knows CPR, that conclusion. If it was a different way around and instead they said all nurses must know CPR because Henry is a nurse and he knows CPR, that would be a different situation. But in this case, they were concluding that Henry must know CPR. And the reasoning for that is because all nurses know CPR and Henry's a nurse. So even though this Henry is a nurse seems pretty specific, it's more general than the conclusion of Henry knows CPR. So we can use that to deduce that this goes from general to a specific, and so this would be considered a deductive argument. Okay, our next argument is a number is prime if it is only divisible by itself and 1. Since the number 13 is only divisible by itself and 1, 13 must be prime. So we can tell off the bat that this 13 must be prime. That's our conclusion. So our premises are going to be a number is prime if it's only divisible by itself and 1. And then number 13 is only divisible by itself and 1. So those are the two statements that are getting used to come up with this conclusion that the number 13 must be prime. So again, because the conclusion is a specific statement and these premises are more general definitions and properties of numbers, we would say this is a deductive argument. So again, the biggest way to tell deductive versus inductive is really to look at that conclusion and is that a specific statement or is it a more general statement? Okay, last example on this. Juan's dog Goober is having puppies. All 3 of Goober's previous litters have had 5 puppies, so Goober is bound to have 5 puppies in this litter as well. So we can see right off the bat, this is what they're concluding. So Goober is going to have most likely 5 puppies in their litter. And what they're using as a premise is all 3 of Goober's previous litters have had 5 puppies. Also, Goober is having puppies is a premise. So we know Goober is having puppies. We know that the last 3 litters had puppies. These are very specific examples. And then we're going to conclude that Goober's current litter will have 5 puppies. So again, even though that's pretty specific, these are a lot more specific than that conclusion. So Goober's having puppies, that's very specific. Goober's last 3 litters had 5 puppies, that's specific. His last 3 litters for sure had it. So I'm going to generalize that by saying that he's going to have 5 in his next litter. And so this is considered an inductive argument.